Hello, welcome to this episode of the Mayhem Lab. If you remember in a previous video, we looked at creating Hand 2.0, created the mold, so that had been accomplished, and this week we went ahead and actually pulled the casting and made a duplicate. So let's look at how we did that. Alright, so this week, like I said, we've extended previous video. We created the hand casting mold, created the plaster cast around that, and then we ended up pulling the cast, which looks a lot better than version 1.0. There's a lot less holes and void spots in it. There are still quite a few number of bubbles, but I have a plan to hopefully take care of that in version 3. So let's take a look real quick at how I ended up doing this. Used the same technique that I did in the past, which is have the mold itself in its plaster cast. I just rubber band it together so it stays in one piece. Stick it in a pot. The pot's about 8 inches deep. Not quite sure of the diameter of it, but as long as it fits the mold, it's fine. And then what I do is I ended up packing sand around it. So this is the same technique that I used in the past. The big difference is, after speaking with SmoothOn, it sounds like this casting material can accept or can work up to about 400 degrees. So I must have had the pan quite warm, probably in excess of about 500 degrees, to actually do the damage to the mold that I did last time. So what I did last time, like we talked about, is I heated the pan up on the stovetop, thinking that the heat would radiate up through the sand and warm the entire mold. Clearly the bottom of the sand got much hotter than the top of the sand, so we didn't do that this time. What I ended up doing is actually putting it into the oven. So took the same process, the same vessel, the pot, dumped it, filled it full of sand, had it stood up correctly, and then what I did is I just put this entire pan into the oven. So then while that's heating up, my goal was to heat it up to approximately 200 250 degrees. While that was heating up, what I did is I took my, it's about a pound or so ish of material that I need to create a hand. So took that material, cubed it up approximately an inch or so. It doesn't have to be perfect, and then I put it into the pan to heat up. Instead of heating this on the stove as well, I heat it up in an electric fry skillet. The reason I do that is so that I can maintain proper temperature. This particular gel has a flash point of, I believe it's 325 degrees-ish, right around there. Melting temperature, working temperature is about 250. So I want to get it fairly warm, but obviously not too warm, so it would combust. So I can control it a little bit better on the actual hot plate, or electric skillet rather. So I heat that up. It takes a few hours for that all to melt down and essentially become liquid water, and then we can pour it into the cast. And then here is the final product. If we look at that compared to the previous video, had large gaps and voids because it was just drying too quickly in the mold. So it was the air was not releasing. However, you can see that there are still quite a number of bubbles in the fingers. So it's certainly not releasing all of the air in there, but it's definitely much better than it was. So it's definitely a step in the right direction, which makes me happy. And I do have a small little video on that. So after I put it in the oven, took it out, as you can see, the sand is just about 160. Measuring around all the different objects, it's just under 200 on the inside, 160, 170, I believe it was. One thing I did notice is the bones became a little bit spongy and rubbery while I was heating it in the oven. So I'm not 100% sure what these bones were made out of. It's a plastic of some kind. They're fake, but need to figure that out, see what they can actually maintain. So I did pull it out early. I took it out at, like I said, about 170 degrees, so it's not as hot as I wanted it. And with the liquid gelatin, then just dump it in there. You do notice that the gelatin is kind of brown, yellowish. That's because I've got some dirt in there from previous attempts with the sand and things, so I do need to take some time and get this cleaned up and squared away a little bit better. But Not hard, just, you're just filling it up, trying to get out as many air pockets and bubbles as possible. The nice thing with this technique is with preheating the mold, which is definitely a step forward. Keeping it warm really did a great job of helping me release those large air pockets and get rid of a lot of that air and space. So that should be a really great a really great thing. So what I ended up doing as well is after I took it out of the oven, I left it sit on the stove. So I ended up trying to remove as much air as I could, moving it around. But then I left it on the stove to cool down for the next couple of hours. And that's not a terrible idea. It took maybe 4 or 5 hours to cool down. But I'm thinking what I'm going to try next is repeat the same process, but put it back into the oven and then turn the oven off. So then it will just cool down naturally, hopefully over a long period of time, and let the oven just dissipate its heat, hopefully giving it more like 8 to 10 hours to cool down and release some more of the bubbles, the smaller bubbles out of the fingers. So I also did sort of a poor job putting the bones into this particular hand. They're not really straight. They're sort of poking out the fingernails in a couple places. So a little bit more precision in that would be nice. But otherwise, I'm pleased with the second attempt and how it turned out. Hopefully you guys like this process. Let me know if you have any comments, questions. If you've ever tried to do some of this stuff before, I'm going to keep going. Hopefully version 3 will get even a little bit better, and hopefully we're going to see that come out here soon. But I think this is good enough to start doing some testing. So what I plan on doing next is I do have some RFID chips. As I mentioned in a previous video, I had some animal tags, but I was able to get some actual RFID chips that you would implant in yourself. So I'm going to get one of those loaded up in a needle, get it injected into the hand, and see what that looks like after I actually inject it, and film that obviously, and hopefully get that out. So let me know if you got any comments, questions, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Thank you for watching this episode of the Mayhem Lab. If you've enjoyed this video, please click like, and we will produce more videos like this one. Also, please consider clicking subscribe so you don't miss our latest content.